Hey, we're Matt and Johnny, and today we're going to be answering your burning questions about recycling. This video is sponsored by Skillshare.
So over the last couple of weeks, we've been asking our audience on YouTube, Instagram, and Patreon to shoot us some questions that we can answer in today's video.
So let's get straight into it. What are the health risks of recycling plastic and how do you mitigate this?
So we work solely with HDPE, which is high density polyethylene, and polyethylenes are the safest type of plastics that you can melt. We do always suggest you work in a well ventilated area and you wear a mask suitable for use with non-organic vapours when melting plastic, as if you have any contaminants in the mix or if you go above the burning point, you can give off fumes which have proven to be carcinogenic.
That is one reason we really like using the panini press, because it can never actually bring the plastic up past its burning point.
If you had somebody ask you why you make things out of plastic, what would you say?
So originally we were just sort of general makers on this channel. So if you flick back to our first ever video, not only will you cringe,
don't do that.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Hello and welcome to Brothers Make. This is my vice.
It's mainly sort of like woodworking, things like that. Over time we started getting into the idea of making products out of other materials. When we came across recycling plastic, and with that research we started to find out about the sort of the global plastic crisis. So we thought if there was a tiny little dent we could make through our channel and through educating others, we thought it was worthwhile. Is there a possibility of you guys working with 3D printing and filament making?
Really interesting question, because if you can make 3D printer filament from recycled plastic, then the opportunities of what you can make will be completely endless. Now the issue with 3D printer filament is that it requires a really specific cross-sectional diameter. And I think the problem where a lot of people try and make it is that it's quite hard to get that consistent with recycled plastic. There are a few people making it, but I think you can only get short lengths which work with the printers at the moment. But hopefully as the technology improves, it's something that we might be getting into.
It'd be awesome. Once that's a thing, that'd be so cool.
So cool. What if you mix HDPE with LDPE or polypropylene? What are the characteristics of the material that you get to work with?
2 sets and parched.
Shut up.
So our advice is always never mix different types of plastic. As soon as you mix more than one type together, it stops it becoming recyclable again in the future.
Don't do it.
Don't do it, kids. How heat resistant can recycled items like coasters be? If you chuck a hot coffee down on them, how does it coat? And is the material naturally a food safe surface?
So HDPE is a low temperature melting plastic, which means that if you were to have a very thin piece of HDPE out in a very direct sunlight, there is a chance it would warp quite significantly. The coasters that we make are about 4 millimeters thick, so that's thick enough to resist any type of warping from hot drinks being placed on them. In terms of the food safety, I think that's part of a much bigger question. One of our most popular requested products is our HDPE cutting boards. Now, it's something we definitely want to explore, and I think we can make them food safe. The issue is that you have to have them tested regularly, and that testing costs about £2,000. So not something in our wheelhouse right now. Hopefully in the future we can. Is it possible to pick up plastic beach litter and recycle it using your method, or would the plastic be too contaminated?
So you can absolutely get plastic from beach cleans. That's a lot of our plastic is actually sourced from bleach cleans.
Bleach clean.
Clean that bleach. So a lot of our plastic is sourced from beach cleans. So it's the same as anything else really. As long as it's marked with that number 2, then you're all good to go. We go through a fairly rigorous process of cleaning the plastic. So as long as you get rid of any sort of sand and debris, you can absolutely use it. The only other downside is if the beach has actually eroded away that number 2. But in most cases, when we get stuff from beach cleans, it's pretty much good to go once we've cleaned it. What are the emissions created by recycling? Is HDPE the only safe one to Bless you. Is HDPE the only safe one to recycle, or do you recycle any other types of plastic?
So technically, all thermoplastics have the ability to be recycled, but it's certain machinery and things that actually make them compatible that you can actually use them. Polyethylenes like LDPE and HDPE are the safest as they create the fewest amount of emissions, but there are other plastics that you can use. Again, just always make sure you're wearing a mask and you make sure you don't go above the burning point for each separate plastic. We only ever use HDPE as it is the safest one you can use, and it's the best one that works with the DIY methods we've done with the panini press or the toaster oven.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
How many times can I remelt offcuts and shavings?
So every time we make a product or a project using HDPE, we collect all of the shavings and we keep them to make other products with. We recently tried making a product out of this awesome kind of mix of all the colors together, and it came out as this really fantastic dark color, which our Instagram audience called Nebula.
Nebula.
In terms of the amount of times that it can be done, we've not found that limit yet. We use shavings over and over again. If it ever got to the point where the quality of the products were diminishing, we would add in some of our once recycled plastic into the mix to improve it again. Typically, industrial recyclers will add new virgin plastic into this lower grade plastic.
Boo.
Yeah, to try and improve the quality, but we promise you we will never ever do that. Is this your full-time jobs?
This is not our full-time jobs. So when we started the channel, we were just doing one evening a week.
Yep.
Now we're at a point that a whole day on a Monday is dedicated to doing our channel. So we start, it's a long old day. We do a sort of an 8:30 till midnight.
A long day.
It's a very long day.
Especially with this guy.
Especially with this guy. So outside of those Mondays, we do have our regular jobs. I work in advertising and Matt is a teacher. I want to say you teach product design?
Product design.
Product design.
And engineering.
My brother, I know him well. How many plant pots can you make in 1 hour, and do you have multiple molds for the same size pot?
Ooh. We only have one mold for each of the size products that we sell. In terms of how quickly we can turn them around, I reckon it probably takes us about 10 minutes to mold and then demold each pot. So you're looking at about 6 plant pots in an hour if we're working at kind of max.
If we're sort of hot tailing it, but
that's rare.
That's not us. So the aluminium molds themselves are actually a heat sink, so we're not having to wait for a really long cool down time. Essentially, you can undo it, pop it out, and get it straight back in. So I've got a sort of multi-part question for you here.
Oh, exciting.
So firstly, why can you recycle black plastic but others can't?
So I think this is down to the fact that industrial recyclers use infrared technology to detect their plastic to sort it all out into the different plastic types. And I think that the issue with that is that the infrared can't detect it on black plastic as it's not reflective or something like that. Compared to what we do is we sit there in our evenings and weekends manually sorting plastic out, looking for those number 2s, and as long as it's got the number...
That's immature. That is immature. That's lowering the tone of the
video. It's going to be a poop emoji on the screen, isn't there? Right there. Right there, green poop emoji. So we sit there looking for the HDPE logo on the plastic, and as long as it's got the logo on it, we can use any colour we like.
Part 2, do you mark your plastic products with the resin ID codes, and if so, why?
Absolutely we do. It's very important to us that our products go out with markings on them, as if they get to the end of their life cycle and they want to be recycled, if there's no marking on them, it's very, very unlikely that that will happen. We hand stamp everything with the HDPE number 2 logo, and if you're making anything out of recycled plastic, we encourage you to do the same.
Part 3, is you recycling at home on a small scale better than curbside recycling?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. I'm not sure if you've ever seen the stats about recycled plastic, but over the course of its lifetime, I think only 9% of plastic that's ever been created has actually been recycled, which is a really shocking fact. If you look at the UK stats over the last couple of years, I think we're getting a bit better. It's towards the 40 or 50% mark. That basically means if you were to put 2 bottle tops in your curbside recycling, the likelihood is that one of them would either go to landfill, be incinerated, or end up in the ocean.
Save those whales.
Whereas every piece of HDPE that we get donated, we use, and even the waste that comes off of the products gets reused again. So yes, recycling at home, where you can guarantee 100% of the plastic is used, is much better than your traditional curbside recycling.
And it's good fun.
Great fun. Can you make an HDPE plate and cut it using a CNC router?
Yes.
Where do you draw the line when it comes to cleaning plastic? What's acceptable and what's too much work?
So essentially it all boils down to time really. As we mentioned, we only have a certain amount of time allocated a week to doing the whole process, so that means the sort of the cleaning section is only a portion of that small amount of time. So obviously we do try and clean everything. If something is particularly stubborn and it's taking a good sort of 5 minutes and it's still not happening, the most likely solution is that we can cut that section out and then we can work with the rest of it and use it in our usual process. What alternative equipment can be used if you don't have a shredder or a press?
So over the years, we've used quite a range of different things with very marginal success. We actually tried a garden shredder initially to shred the HDPE down, and yeah, didn't work. Very inconsistent flake sizes. The HDPE is just too slippy to be chewed up by the large blades of a shredder. There's another channel called Homemade Modern, where Ben used a food processor to make HDPE chips, and that worked actually really well. We did try this once with a cheap food processor, and that didn't work very well.
Not so much.
So I think you need a decent machine to do it, but you can get some good success out of that. In terms of a press, we were very lucky and we got our panini press from a charity shop for £3. We've also got a t-shirt press, and that works really well. If you can't find either of those, you could try something just like a heat gun and a tin can, melt the plastic in there, and then you could fashion some kind of press together using a vise or some clamps or something. You've got a multi-part question as well here, John.
Got my own one.
If I'm using an oven, what temperature should it be to melt but not burn the HDPE?
So HDPE will burn at about 180 degrees Celsius. So we tend to set the oven to about 150 to 160.
How do you get your funky patterns?
Ooh, the funky patterns. So to get that really cool marbling effect, it's all about how you sort of twist and fold the plastic. So you may have noticed in some of our videos, we actually melt the plastic in its own sort of separate batches of colours before amalgamating it.
That's
the hell of that.
Well done.
Before sort of combining it into one big block. Then it's a series of twisting and folding to get the really nice sort of, looks a bit like rock. Is that just an English thing? Rock?
I think it's an English thing. It's like
Candy.
Twisting candy. Someone referred to it once as massaging plastic, which I thought was quite
Lovely, yeah. The one thing you do need to be able to get that though is a good pair of gloves. So we tend to use these silicone oven mitts, then the plastic isn't going to be sticking to your hands or anything like that.
We'll pop a link in the description for you. What products do you get your plastic from besides bottle lids?
Milk bottle lids probably count to, what percentage would you say milk bottle lids?
80%.
80%, yes. Vast majority is milk bottle lids. But aside from that, you're looking at sort of shampoos, detergents, and bleach bottles, really.
Have you ever tried using HDPE carrier bags in projects?
No, we haven't, but a friend of ours, her channel is iJessup. She actually did this and she made a really cool sort of upgraded plastic bag out of plastic bags. So yes, it can be done.
The BagBag.
The BagBag.
And she did it, I believe, with a clothes iron as well, which is another cool way you can melt plastic.
So this is probably one of the most common questions we actually had. And it is, how do you tell if the plastic is HDPE without the two in the triangle?
Good question. We have been rigorously emailing companies recently that decide to mark their lids with their company name, but not with the plastic type. So we think that's ridiculous. And if that's you, stop doing it.
Stop it.
It's a really good question, and there is multiple ways it can be done. If you have a really expensive infrared machine that can detect densities of plastic using infrared technology, by all means go ahead and use that, but they are thousands and thousands of pounds. A cheaper way that it can be done is to use water. So different densities of plastic will float and sink in different salinities of water. So you can add salt to water, change the salinity, some plastics will sink and some plastics will float, and you can skim them off the top and they'll all be one type. If this is something that's interesting and you want us to do a video on it, let us know and we might do that in the future.
That'd be a cool little video actually.
Yeah.
You can tell you're a teacher, salinity.
So, what's wrong with salinity?
Salinity.
Salt.
Saltiness. Saltiness.
Salinity. Come on. You had amalgamation a minute ago. You can't complain about salinity. What's an easy project that you can do with kids?
So one of our more recent videos was 3 different recycled plastic ideas you could do with some limited tools. So all the stuff in there is pretty straightforward. It should work quite nicely if you want to do it with some kids. So essentially we did coasters, we did sort of key rings and some jewellery. I know you do it a lot with your students, don't you?
Yeah, so at school we have a similar setup with a panini press, and you can make the sheets and then the students can cut them into different things. You've got to be a little bit careful with the heat, so make sure you teach them about what parts they can and can't touch and make sure everyone's wearing the right type of gloves.
What is the easiest way of cleaning plastic?
The first thing we always hit it with is soap and hot water, just to kind of scrub everything out. For the more stubborn things to try and clean, you can try WD-40. Acetone is a good one to try as well. And believe it or not, cooking oil actually works really well for some different types of sticky labels. Can I melt plastic in my oven in case I don't have any other tools?
So if that's the oven you're actually going to be cooking in, I would say a flat no. It's probably not a good idea to start melting the plastic in something you're going to be used for cooking.
Also, you might cook later on at a higher temperature, and if there's any tiny plastic residues in there, It would burn the plastic, and then not a good idea.
Don't leave it. Try and get another one. We got a little press for £3. Hopefully, charity shops, you'll be able to find something similar. Where do you get all your plastic? Surely you don't drink that much milk. Love a milkshake.
So as mentioned, I'm a teacher and I actually set a challenge to my students recently where every tutor group needs to collect plastic milk bottles, and the tutor group that collects the most will get some prizes, sweet treats and plastic products and stuff like that. That's meant I come home very regularly with 5 to 10 kilos of plastic on a weekly basis, and we're pretty much swamped. Other than that, we have a donation crate on our driveway where people from the local community can come around, drop their plastic off. As long as it's clean and label free, we can then take that and use it in our projects.
We also get donations from local beach cleans, and there's other members of the community that have acted as little sort of collection points within their villages or towns, who then sort of get all their plastic together and then bring it to us as well. So there's loads of places you can get it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How can you recycle single-use face masks?
So those single-use face masks, obviously being used all the time now, they actually do have quite a lot of plastic in them, so it's a massive problem if they do end up, say, in the ocean. So we're actually working with a company called Rewert, who are taking this PPE and then sterilising it and recycling it into sort of plastic granules, which we're then looking to make a product out of.
There's going to be a video coming up in a couple of months' time maybe, so look out for that one.
What are 3 or more ways that a person could melt plastic if they don't have a panini maker or expensive machinery? So, number 1.
So number 1, you could use a mini toaster oven. We picked one up secondhand for I think £10, so see what's online or available around you.
Second way?
You could try a heat gun with a tin can. There's a really good video on YouTube where somebody did that and they made a beautiful carving mallet out of it.
Third way?
Earlier on we mentioned a channel called Homemade Modern where Ben used a food processor to make HDPE flakes. In that video he actually made a guitar out of HDPE, and I think he mentioned at the end that he was going to experiment with solar energy to try and melt plastic. So that'd be a really interesting way to try and melt plastic. No idea on the scale of that or the cost, but again something that would be really interesting.
Would be really cool. Can you use the same method you use to recycle HDPE to recycle other types of plastic like PET or PS?
So by method, there's obviously two methods we've shown in our videos. There's the DIY method using the panini press, and then the slightly more advanced method using our injection molding machine. Now, PS has a lot of fumes associated with it, so we wouldn't recommend ever using that. It can be quite bad when you melt it, especially if you burn it. PET can be done, but it's very, very tricky. It has a really specific and narrow operating window to try and get that temperature correct, so it can be very tricky to use. In the panini press method, neither of those would work. In the injection molder method, we haven't tried it. I guess in theory, yes, but I don't think it's recommended.
So a big topic when it comes to recycling plastic, how do we contain microplastics?
So as a general rule, if you can ever avoid creating them in the first place, that's the best bet. Try not to. So if you don't have to sand it, don't sand it. All of the products we currently make and sell on our website require no sanding or finishing, and they come out of the mold completely finished. Any processes that we've done in the past that have created microplastics, we've always made sure to contain them by having a dedicated system to hoover all those up at the end, and then they can be reused for other projects. If you don't have the ability to do this, then try and do processes that create larger chips rather than fine particles. So sanding to a fine grade will create very, very lightweight microplastics, whereas using a chisel would actually create shavings that are much easier to collect up and save.
Just before we get into some more questions, we want to take a quick second to talk to you about this video's sponsor, Skillshare.
Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of online classes for people who are looking to learn something new or dive deeper into an existing passion.
It's all about learning with new classes being added all the time with absolutely no ads.
Isn't this an ad?
Shut up. There are also different class levels, so you can tailor your learning from beginner to advanced to fit your skill level.
Some of the topics we've been enjoying recently include sustainability as well as product photography, which has really helped when taking product photos for our online store.
The class we're currently watching is Sustainable Living Basics by Catherine Kellogg, which show a load of day-to-day changes you can make in your lives which will reduce your impact on the environment.
And to top it all off, the first 1,000 Brothers Make subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium so you can start to explore your creativity today. Right, back to the questions. How can you get transparent HDPE?
You don't. It's just the nature of the polymer. You do not get transparent HDPE.
You can get the translucent stuff, which is like the milk bottles that you can partially see through, but it's never fully transparent. Could you possibly make a kitchen worktop with HDPE, and would it burn if you fully melted it?
Firstly, yes, you can make kitchen worktop, so that's part of the reason we want a sheet press, so we can actually do this. In terms of fully melting it, you can never fully melt HDPE. It doesn't actually go down to a liquid state. It goes down to that kind of chewing gum kind of consistency. So yeah, as long as it's not going over 180 degrees Celsius, then you won't be burning it. Did you use precious plastic plans, or did you come up with your own?
So in terms of the overall business plan, we do go off a precious plastic model. In terms of our machines come from a company called Plastic Preneur, which are based off of precious plastic machines, but they've got a lot of safety upgrades and they've got a lot of additions that they've made to make them their own.
We'll link them below so you can check them out.
We've actually been chatting with Precious Plastic recently, and we're going to be collaborating with them soon, so you'll see more and more of that coming from us in the future. You've mentioned you source your energy efficiently. What energy resources do you use?
So we use a company called Octopus Energy, and we have their 100% renewable energy tariff. We don't actually have a domestic source of energy on site at the moment, but we are looking to upgrade to our own unit within the next 12 months, hopefully. And if that's the case, we'll definitely be looking into sort of solar panels or something like that. So how much maintenance does your machinery require, or how often do you find yourselves with a malfunction to address? What would you say to someone who's interested in the process but has zero mechanical maintenance experience?
Our machines from Plastic Preneur have been absolutely fantastic. In the 6 months that we've had them, we've only had one issue with our injection machine where we had a slightly clogged nozzle. That was just...
It's like a cold for a machine, I like it.
Which is probably our fault because the nozzle had a bit of a blockage. Unscrewed it, cleaned it out, and it worked perfectly again. The shredder has had absolutely no issues so far. So yeah, no maintenance issues so far.
We've actually got the guys at Plastic Preneur in a WhatsApp group. So luckily the customer service is bang on because we just messaged them and they fire a message straight back.
Bank holiday weekend, they messaged back within 10 minutes. Absolutely amazing.
Nailed it.
If you have zero mechanical maintenance experience, I'd say the advantage of going with a company like Plastic Preneur is that it generally will mean you have less maintenance to do on the machines. If you tend to build your own or you get yourself a kit, that's fine, but you need to know a little bit more about what you're doing and your way around mechanics and machinery. 2 questions from one of our patrons. First part is, I know you use the washing bags to clean HDPE, but what temperature and what detergent do you use?
So to keep it as environmentally friendly as possible, we'll do it on the lowest possible temperature wash. So that's a 30-degree wash. So you might find that some of the stains or the marks on the dirtier lids or plastic are being removed. If that is the case, you might want to try a higher wash at 40 or maybe 60 degrees. If that's still not working, you can add a tiny bit of detergent in, but you will just have to make sure you do a rinse cycle afterwards.
Part 2, if nothing sticks to HDPE as you've proven, what the hell do they use to stick the labels on?
Genuinely have no idea. Don't know.
We need to do some research.
Yeah, I'm going No idea. Very good question, very good point. We'll try and find out.
Whatever they use, we're going to buy a lot of it.
Yeah, gallons of the stuff, slap it on. Screw our welding technique. So can you estimate the average quantity of bottle caps that you need to make a 10 by 10 by 1 centimetre sheet, for example, and eventually tell us how many caps you use when you make a project?
So when we want to make a new project using our DIY method, we want to work out how thick of a sheet to make. So we'll use the same formula, pop it up here. It's just a density equation, and you can just plug the numbers in. From what we've done with HDPE, we've basically worked out that the density of HDPE is 0.97 grams per centimetres cubed. You can then work out the mass by multiplying the density by the volume. The volume in your example would be 10 by 10 by 1, which would be 100. So you'd need 97 grams of HDPE to make a sheet that thick.
Maths.
Bottle tops range from about 1.4 to 2 grams, so you probably need around 50, a little bit extra to account for any waste that might get squeezed out of the mold.
More maths.
If a bottle cap has ink on it, would it still work in the process?
Yeah, so if you can get rid of it, then great. But if not, it's so negligible, it's pretty much just going to evaporate in the process. So yeah, it's fine to, if there's something on there and you can't get rid of it, I wouldn't worry.
Don't worry.
How expensive is it to make a shredder?
Our shredder was expensive as it was a fully assembled kit. However, if you go on the precious Plastic Bazar, you can get a whole range of different things where you can buy the laser cut parts to build your own. You can buy different components separately and then assemble it yourself. Depending on your level of mechanical engineering knowledge, you've got different options there. Or like we said earlier on, you can try a food processor and try your luck. Have you ever tried melting HDPE in a microwave or on the stove?
No, we haven't. I do think, firstly, it feels a bit too kitchen related, and like we say, we try and keep all of this melting outside of the kitchen. But I mean, you could obviously have a stove outside, but it's much harder to control the heat. So I think something like a panini press where you're sure that it's not going to go over that melting point. I feel with a stove, it's going to it'd be quite easy to start burning the plastic and then make
ruin your pans as well.
Ruin those pans. Let's leave those pans.
Could you use the welding technique discussed in your lamp video to join two solid colours with a distinct edge to it?
Yes, you definitely can actually. A wonderful friend and a patron of ours actually made this for us. We'll try and get a little screenshot here. So I believe the technique he did to achieve this was to make the yellow slab first, cut those holes in it, and then make a melt with orange plastic, and then sort of push that and squeeze that into the space. You can then cut this back, and it should leave you some nice, really sort of sharp lines.
We're actually thinking of making our own 100k play button since we've never received ours yet.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that using that technique. So if that's a video you want to see, let us know.
Yeah. Right, so the very last question that we have. I'm unsure how to price items. Can you make a video or share how you do this?
So we've spent a lot of time working on our pricing, especially for our products that we've put on our website. With a recycled material, you're always going to come against the opinion that the material is free and therefore the product should be cheap. However, our entire pricing strategy is based on our time. We set ourselves a day rate, work out how much we can achieve in that day, and then price our items accordingly to how many we can make in that day. We've got a very in-depth and detailed spreadsheet that I'm very proud of.
So happy with it.
If you want us to take through that entire process in a video all about pricing, that could be something that we do in the future. Let us know in the comments below.
As Matt said, there is that misconception that with recycled plastic or recycled items, it should be free. But if you're buying sort of brand new and really nice, clean materials, you're pretty much good to go as soon as you've got it. However, with this material, there's sorting, there's cleaning, there's melting, there's the shredding. So there's a whole load more steps that comes with this process.
And the people that see the final product never see that behind the scenes stuff. So there's a lot more to it. We're trying to build a customer base that values the material rather than just buying cheap plastic and it becomes a throwaway item in the future.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you like this slightly different type of content. Just actually need to make way for our patrons to come in.
Oh, right.
There we go. And if you want to join the Brotherhood like these lovely lot, we've popped a link to our Patreon in the description below.
Thanks for watching this video. If you like this type of thing where we answer your questions, let us know. Maybe we'll do another one when we get some more questions in the future.
Cool. All right. We need to move out the way because there's going to be some cards coming up now.
Should we?
I reckon let's just lay down.
Let's lay down.
Thanks for watching, guys.
I don't know if we're off screen or not.
I feel that they can't see us.
We just stay laid down, they won't be able to see it.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, you can see it. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Bye.